Hip hinging is going to be the most fundamental movement that we can use for developing our posterior chain, so let's learn how to set ourselves up for success. Starting off as a little bit of movement prep is this half kneeling quad hip flexor stretch. First thing we're going to do is feel like we're tilting the pelvis upwards, squeezing our glutes, getting our core a bit active, and then from there driving the hips slightly forward. You should ideally feel this stretch on the front side of your hips, but you may feel it a little bit lower than that, and that's just our quads being a little bit tighter than our hip flexor. The reason why we're doing this is because these muscles essentially inhibit how well we can fire our glutes while extending our hips. So pacifying these first is really going to help us perform our deadlifts better. And I would always say lean forward when moving in and out of the stretch so you don't pull a hip flexor off your body, because that'd be really painful. First thing we're going to do is feel as if the handle of the kettlebell is intersecting our feet right around midfoot. If you had shoes on, it would be right around where the knots of your shoelaces are. From there, we're trying to leverage ourselves away from the ground, and ideally we would have this little triangle shape here where our shoulders, hips, and knees make a sideways triangle, and then from there we're just pushing through the ground. And main important thing is feeling like you're just driving your feet directly down, not that you're driving your hips forward. Starting with the kettlebell too far out in front of us is going to cause us to round our spine, which is going to put a bit more stress on it and make us less efficient in our pull. Ideally, we want the kettlebell weight to be as proximal to our center of gravity and base of support as possible. That helps us create a bit more trunk stability. And even though this is a pull exercise for our posterior chain, we are thinking about driving those feet directly down into the ground. One of the most common flaws I see is essentially setting up with not enough tension in the upper body and not taking the slack out of the arms. Ideally, we want to think about the arms as being ropes that we're just taking all the slack out of, as well as hiding our armpits, really getting our trunk nice and stable before we push our feet into the ground. The elevated kettlebell deadlift is going to be the option for somebody that just doesn't quite have enough hamstring mobility, but is decent at creating trunk stability. This will make it a little bit easier for them to hinge through this pattern, and you can lower it closer to the floor over time. Next one here is going to be a modified good morning stretch. So we're still loading, but instead of being behind our back, we're going to load on the front side. I feel like it's a little bit easier for people to feel the idea of a tall chest as they're loading their hips backwards. If any load is too much, you can go ahead and do a hand version. So placing one hand on our abdomen, one on our chest, and feeling like those hands are actually getting further away from each other as we hinge. Handcuff hold is going to be a great option for those who lack a little bit of that extension in that trunk. So you're trying to feel like you're punching those hands down behind your back, which is going to keep our upper back nice and extended. And then from there, we're just pushing away with our hips. So this is best for somebody that already has a pretty good idea of how to hip hinge, but just needs a little bit of assistance on understanding how the torso is supposed to work through this process. So if you're somebody that struggles with understanding what your knees should be doing while hinging through your hips, whether you hyperextend the legs or you tend to drive your knees too far forward, putting a bench on your knees to apply a little bit of pressure into is going to be really, really helpful. And you can even incorporate some of the previous ones, either the handcuff hold or this modified good morning stretch with a weight in front to really facilitate that hip hinge and learn proper mechanics. These are going to be your starting off points. Hinging in general is a very expansive topic, so if you want me to make a follow-up video on conventional deadlift, sumo deadlift, and any hip hinge pattern, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.